Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Cubicles stretched out in neat rows, filled with the clatter of keyboards and the low hum of hushed conversations. Amidst the sea of pressed shirts and polished shoes, Camden hunched over his desk, his slender frame nearly swallowed by the oversized office chair. A hand slapped down on his desk, startling him from his concentration. "Earth to Camden. You in there, buddy?" Camden blinked, looking up to find Lisa grinning down at him, her wild red curls bouncing as she perched on the edge of his desk. He cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. "Sorry, I was just buried in work as usual," Lisa finished for him, rolling her eyes good-naturedly. "Come on, it's almost lunchtime. The gang's heading out for tacos. You're coming with us this time. No excuses." Camden hesitated, his eyes darting back to his computer screen. "I don't know. I've got this report to finish and—" "Nope, not hearing it," Lisa interrupted, reaching out to shut his laptop with a decisive click. "You've been here for months, and I bet half the office doesn't even know your name. It's time to socialize, my friend." Before Camden could protest further, Lisa had hauled him to his feet and was steering him towards the elevators, where a group of their coworkers was already gathering. Camden felt his palms grow sweaty as he approached, tugging nervously at the hem of his plain button-down shirt. "Look who I managed to drag away from his computer," Lisa announced, giving Camden a gentle push forward. "Everyone, this is Camden. Camden, everyone." A chorus of hellos greeted him as Camden managed a weak smile and an awkward wave. As they piled into the elevator, he found himself squished between Lisa and a tall guy he vaguely recognized from the creative department.
"So, Camden," the guy said, flashing a charming smile. "First time joining us for lunch?"
Camden nodded, trying to remember the guy's name. Was it Brad? Brian?
"Yeah, Lisa sort of insisted." "Good for her."
Not Brad. Maybe Brian chuckled.
"We were starting to think you were some kind of robot or something. No offense." "None taken,"
Camden murmured, feeling his cheeks heat up. The elevator dinged, doors sliding open to reveal the busy lobby. As they spilled out onto the sidewalk, Camden hung back, letting the others lead the way to the taco place around the corner. He trailed behind, listening to the easy banter and inside jokes flying back and forth, feeling more out of place with each step. Inside the crowded restaurant, Camden found himself wedged into a booth between Lisa and a bubbly blonde from HR whose name he couldn't recall. As everyone placed their orders, Camden stared blankly at the menu, overwhelmed by the choices. "Having trouble deciding?" Lisa asked, nudging him with her elbow. Camden shrugged helplessly. "I don't really eat out much. What's good here?" "Everything," Lisa declared with a grin. "But for a first-timer, I'd recommend the carne asada. Can't go wrong with that." Grateful for the suggestion, Camden ordered when it was his turn, then settled back to listen as conversation flowed around him. He tried to follow along, but found himself lost in the rapid-fire exchange of office gossip and project updates. "So, Camden," the blonde from HR piped up suddenly, turning to face him. "Tell us about yourself. What do you do for fun?" Camden froze, his mind going blank. What did he do for fun? Work, mostly. Read sometimes. But that hardly seemed like an exciting answer. I like to cook?" he offered lamely, cringing internally at how uncertain he sounded. "Oh, that's great!" the blonde enthused. "What's your specialty?" Camden racked his brain, trying to remember the last time he'd actually cooked something more complicated than microwave ramen.
Pasta?
He ventured, silently cursing himself for making everything sound like a question. Mercifully, their food arrived at that moment, saving Camden from having to elaborate further on his non-existent culinary skills. He focused on his tacos, grateful for the excuse to stay quiet as the others continued chatting around him. As they finished up their meals, Camden began to relax slightly, even managing to contribute a few comments to the conversation. But just as he was starting to feel like he might be able to handle this whole socializing thing, disaster struck. Reaching for his drink, Camden's elbow caught the edge of his plate, sending it clattering to the floor. The remnants of his taco splattered across the tile, drawing the attention of nearby diners. Camden felt his face burn as he scrambled to clean up the mess, muttering apologies. "Hey, no worries," Lisa said, grabbing some napkins to help. "It happens to everyone." But as Camden glanced up, he caught sight of a few of his coworkers exchanging amused looks. Not Brad, maybe Brian leaned over to whisper something to the guy next to him, both of them snickering. Camden's stomach churned, his earlier ease evaporating in an instant. The rest of the meal passed in a blur, with Camden retreating back into his shell, responding to questions with monosyllabic answers. As they walked back to the office, he lagged behind once more, wishing he could disappear into the sidewalk. Back at his desk, Camden buried himself in work, trying to forget the embarrassment of lunch. But as the afternoon wore on, he couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider, of not quite fitting in with his outgoing, confident coworkers. As the day drew to a close, Camden was just shutting down his computer when he overheard a snippet of conversation from the nearby break room.
"I'm telling you, that new intern is hopeless,"
a male voice said, followed by a chuckle.
"Did you see him at lunch? Knocked his whole plate over like a clumsy kid. Cut him some slack,"
another voice responded. "He's just shy."
"Shy? More like socially inept," the first voice retorted. "I bet he wouldn't last a day if he had to actually interact with clients."
Camden's chest tightened as he realized they were talking about him. He slumped in his chair, feeling smaller than ever. "Hey! Earth to Camden!" Lisa's voice cut through his misery. He looked up to find her leaning over his cubicle wall, concern etched on her face.
"You okay? You've been awfully quiet since lunch."
Camden forced a smile.
"Yeah, I'm fine. Just tired, I guess."
Lisa eyed him skeptically.
"Well, a bunch of us are heading out for drinks. Want to join?"
The thought of spending more time feeling awkward and out of place made Camden's stomach churn. He shook his head.
"Thanks, but I think I'll just head home. Maybe next time."
Lisa's face fell slightly, but she nodded.
"All right, if you're sure. See you tomorrow then."
As she walked away, Camden slumped further in his chair, feeling more isolated than ever. He gathered his things slowly, waiting until most of his coworkers had left before making his way to the elevator. The next morning, Camden arrived at the office early, hoping to avoid running into anyone. He'd barely settled at his desk when he heard familiar voices approaching. "I'm telling you, it's a great idea," Lisa was saying excitedly. "We could make it a whole team-building thing."
"I don't know,"
another voice responded doubtfully.
"Isn't that a bit much?"
Camden peered over his cubicle wall to see Lisa walking with not Brad, maybe Brian, and a few others from the creative team. "Come on, it'll be fun," Lisa insisted. "And it's for a good cause. The shelter needs all the help it can get."
What's going on? Camden found himself asking before he could stop himself. The group turned, seeming surprised to see him there. Lisa's face lit up.
Camden, perfect timing. We were just discussing ideas for the company's community outreach day. I was thinking we could do a fundraiser for the local animal shelter. Maybe a charity car wash or something?
Camden blinked, caught off guard by being included in the conversation. Oh, that sounds nice, he offered hesitantly. Not Brad, maybe Brian snorted. Nice, maybe. But can you imagine this bunch trying to wash cars? Half of us would probably end up soaked and covered in soap suds.
That's kind of the point, Lisa argued. It's supposed to be fun and silly. Get people out of their comfort zones a bit.
As the group continued to debate the merits of various fundraising ideas, Camden found himself tuning out, his mind drifting back to the overheard conversation from yesterday. Get people out of their comfort zones? He was so far out of his comfort zone just being in this office every day, he wasn't sure he even remembered what comfort felt like anymore. What do you think, Camden? Lisa's voice snapped him back to attention. Huh? He stammered, realizing he'd completely lost track of the conversation. Not Brad, maybe Brian, rolled his eyes. See? Even Camden thinks it's a bad idea. He can't even pretend to be interested. Camden felt his face flush. No, I was just... Leave him alone, Brian, Lisa said, shooting Camden a sympathetic look. He's probably just not a morning person. So, it was Brian, Camden noted absently, feeling a mix of relief at finally knowing the guy's name and embarrassment at being defended like a child. As the group dispersed, heading to their respective desks, Lisa lingered behind. Don't let Brian get to you, she said softly. He can be a bit of a jerk sometimes. Camden shrugged, avoiding her gaze. It's fine. He's not wrong. I'm not exactly good at this stuff. Lisa frowned. What stuff? You know. Camden gestured vaguely. People. Socializing. Being normal. Oh, Camden, Lisa sighed, perching on the edge of his desk. There's no such thing as normal. Everyone's a little weird in their own way. You just need to find your groove, that's all. Camden doubted it was that simple, but he appreciated her attempt at reassurance. Thanks, Lisa. I should probably get back to work, though. Lisa nodded, standing up. All right. But hey, if you want to talk more, or need any advice or anything, I'm here, okay? As she walked away, Camden turned back to his computer, trying to focus on the task at hand. But his mind kept wandering, replaying every awkward moment, every sidelong glance, every whispered comment he'd overheard. The day dragged on, each interaction feeling like a minefield Camden had to navigate. By the time lunch rolled around, he was exhausted. When Lisa stopped by his desk to invite him out again, he begged off, claiming he had too much work to do. Alone in the quiet office, Camden unwrapped his sad, homemade sandwich and tried to eat, but found he had little appetite. He was just about to give up and toss the remainder in the trash when he heard voices approaching.
I'm telling you, it's the perfect solution,
Brian was saying, his voice carrying from the break room.
We need something that'll really shake things up, get people talking. And what's more attention-grabbing than a guy in a dress?
Camden froze, his sandwich halfway to his mouth. Were they still talking about the fundraiser?
I don't know,
another voice responded, sounding uncertain. Isn't that a bit insensitive? What if it offends someone?
It's not like we're making fun of anyone,
Brian argued. It's just a goofy costume thing. People do it for Halloween all the time.
Still,
the other voice persisted. I'm not sure anyone would actually volunteer for that. Brian laughed.
That's the beauty of it.
We make it a bet. Pick someone unlikely, like that awkward intern. What's his name? Camden? And dare him to do it. If he chickens out, he has to, I don't know, do everyone's coffee runs for a month or something. Camden's stomach dropped. They couldn't be serious. Could they?
And if he actually does it?
The other voice asked. Then we all chip in for the donation to the shelter, Brian said triumphantly. It's win-win. Either way, we get some entertainment out of it. As the voices faded, moving away from the break room, Camden sat frozen, his mind reeling. They wanted him to dress up as a woman? For a bet? The very thought made his palms sweat and his heart race. He spent the rest of the afternoon in a daze, jumping at every sound, convinced that at any moment Brian and the others would approach him with their outrageous proposal. But the hours ticked by without incident, and Camden began to hope that maybe it had just been idle talk, a joke that would be forgotten by morning. As he packed up to leave, however, he caught sight of Brian huddled with a group near the elevators, all of them glancing in his direction and whispering. Camden's stomach churned. This was really happening. He ducked his head, hurrying past the group and into the stairwell, taking the steps 2 at a time in his haste to escape. Out on the street, he gulped in the cool evening air, trying to calm his racing thoughts. What was he going to do? If they actually went through with this bet, how could he possibly say no without looking even more pathetic and isolated than he already did? But the thought of actually going through with it, of showing up to the office dressed as a woman? Camden felt dizzy just considering it. As he trudged home, his mind whirled with possibilities and potential disasters. By the time he reached his tiny apartment, he was exhausted, collapsing onto his bed fully clothed. Sleep eluded him, however, as he tossed and turned, plagued by visions of himself stumbling around the office in high heels and a dress, everyone pointing and laughing. When his alarm finally went off the next morning, Camden felt as if he hadn't slept at all. He dragged himself through his morning routine, dreading what awaited him at the office. As he approached the building, he seriously considered turning around and going home, maybe calling in sick. But no, that would only delay the inevitable. Better to face it head on and get it over with. Taking a deep breath, Camden stepped into the elevator, his heart pounding as it carried him up to his floor. The doors slid open, and he braced himself for whatever was to come. To his surprise, the office seemed normal. People bustled about their usual morning routines, no one paying him any particular attention. Camden made his way to his desk, glancing around warily, but saw no sign of Brian or any unusual gathering. Had he imagined the whole thing? Or were they just waiting for the right moment to spring their bet on him? Camden had just settled at his desk when Lisa appeared, coffee in hand and a bright smile on her face. "Morning, Camden. How are you doing today?" He eyed her suspiciously, searching for any hint that she might be in on the bet, but her smile seemed genuine, her tone as friendly as ever. "I'm fine," he said cautiously. "How are you?" "Great," Lisa chirped. "Hey, listen, I wanted to run something by you."
Got a minute?
Camden's stomach clenched. This was it. They were going to propose the bet. He nodded stiffly, bracing himself for what was to come. But to his shock, Lisa launched into an enthusiastic explanation of a new ad campaign she was working on, asking for his input on some of the copy. Camden listened in a daze, barely registering her words as he waited for the other shoe to drop. It never did. The morning passed in a blur of meetings and project updates, with no mention of bets or dresses or anything out of the ordinary. By lunchtime, Camden was starting to think he really had imagined the whole thing. As he microwaved his leftovers in the break room, however, he overheard a snippet of conversation that made his blood run cold.
So, are we really going through with this?
Someone was asking in a hushed tone.
Absolutely,
Brian's voice responded.
I've got it all planned out. We'll spring it on him tomorrow. Trust me, it's going to be hilarious.
Camden's appetite vanished. He abandoned his half-heated lunch and fled back to his desk, his mind racing. Tomorrow. They were going to do it tomorrow, which meant he had less than 24 hours to figure out how to handle this situation. The rest of the day passed in a fog of anxiety. Camden went through the motions of his work, but his mind was elsewhere, running through scenarios and potential outcomes. Should he confront them? Play along? Quit his job and move to another country? As the office began to empty out for the day, Camden lingered at his desk, unable to face the thought of going home to stew in his anxiety all night. He was so lost in thought that he didn't notice Lisa approaching until she was right beside him. "Camden, you okay?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "You've seemed off all day." He looked up at her, wondering if he could trust her. She had always been kind to him, always tried to include him. Maybe she could help? Taking a deep breath, Camden decided to take a chance.
Lisa, can I talk to you about something? In private?
Lisa's eyebrows rose in surprise, but she nodded.
Of course. Want to grab a coffee? There's a nice quiet place just down the street.
Camden hesitated, then nodded.
Okay. Yeah, that would be good.
As they walked to the coffee shop, Camden's mind raced, trying to figure out how to explain what he'd overheard without sounding paranoid or accusatory. By the time they were seated with their drinks, he was a bundle of nerves. Lisa took a sip of her latte, then fixed him with a concerned look. "All right, Camden. What's going on? You look like you're about to jump out of your skin." Camden took a deep breath, then launched into a halting explanation of what he'd overheard, his fears about the bet, and his utter confusion about how to handle the situation. As he spoke, Lisa's expression shifted from concern to shock to something that looked almost like amusement. When he finished, Camden slumped in his chair, exhausted from the emotional outpouring.
So, yeah, that's what's been going on.
I don't know what to do. To his surprise, Lisa burst out laughing. Camden stared at her, hurt and confusion warring in his chest. "I'm sorry," she gasped, trying to compose herself. "I'm not laughing at you, I swear. It's just... Oh, Camden, you've got it all wrong." Now it was Camden's turn to be shocked. "What do you mean?" Lisa took a deep breath, still chuckling slightly. "Okay, so there is a bet, but it's not what you think, and it's definitely not aimed at you." Camden blinked, trying to process this information. "But I heard Brian talking about dressing up as a woman and picking someone unlikely." "Oh, Brian," Lisa sighed, shaking her head. "He's such an idiot sometimes. Okay, here's the deal. We are doing a fundraiser for the animal shelter, but the idea isn't for someone to dress up as a woman. It's a drag show."
"A drag show?"
Camden repeated, confused. Lisa nodded.
Yeah, we're going to have a bunch of the guys volunteer to do drag performances. It's supposed to be fun and silly and, yeah, get people out of their comfort zones a bit. But it's all voluntary. No one's being forced into anything. But I heard them talking about betting on someone. On me! Camden protested weakly. Lisa's expression softened. Oh, honey, that was probably just Brian being an ass. He likes to stir up drama. I bet he was just speculating about who might or might not volunteer. But I promise you, no one is going to make you do anything you don't want to do. Camden sat back, feeling a mix of relief and embarrassment wash over him.
Oh,
he said softly.
I feel so stupid.
Hey, no. Lisa reached out, patting his hand. You're not stupid. You overheard something out of context and got worried. It happens. But this is why it's good to talk to people, you know? Clear things up instead of letting them fester. Camden nodded, still feeling sheepish.
Yeah,
I guess you're right. Thanks for listening and explaining. Lisa smiled warmly. Anytime, Camden. That's what friends are for. Friends. The word hit Camden like a physical force. When was the last time someone had called him a friend? As they finished their coffees and headed back towards the office, Camden felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The fear and anxiety that had been plaguing him all day dissipated, replaced by a tentative warmth. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as alone in this place as he'd thought. The next morning, Camden arrived at the office feeling lighter than he had in weeks. The knowledge that he wasn't the target of some cruel bet, combined with Lisa's assurance of friendship, had given him a newfound sense of ease. As he settled at his desk, he overheard Brian loudly discussing the upcoming drag show fundraiser. Instead of feeling anxious, Camden found himself listening with curiosity. It did sound kind of fun in a silly sort of way.
So, who's brave enough to sign up?
Brian was asking, waving a sheet of paper.
Come on, guys. It's for a good cause.
To Camden's surprise, several of their co-workers actually seemed interested, laughing and joking as they debated who would look best in a dress. Even more surprising was the realization that part of him kind of wanted to join in. Before he could overthink it, Camden found himself standing up and walking over to the group.
He said hesitantly. What exactly would we have to do?
Brian's eyebrows shot up in surprise.
Well, look who's coming out of his shell. Basically, you'd pick a song, come up with a costume, and perform a little lip-sync number. Nothing too crazy.
Camden nodded slowly, considering. It was so far outside his comfort zone it was practically in another galaxy. But maybe that was the point. Maybe this was his chance to show everyone, including himself, that he was more than just the awkward, quiet intern. Taking a deep breath, Camden held out his hand.
Can I see that sign-up sheet?
The office erupted in cheers and surprised laughter as Camden scrawled his name on the paper. Lisa appeared at his side, beaming with pride. Look at you, taking risks! I'm so proud of you, Camden! As his coworkers crowded around, offering suggestions for songs and costume ideas, Camden felt a warmth spread through his chest. For the first time since starting this job, he felt like he was truly part of the team. The next few weeks flew by in a whirlwind of preparation. Camden threw himself into planning his performance with an enthusiasm that surprised even himself. He spent hours researching drag makeup techniques, practicing walking in heels in the privacy of his apartment, and putting together the perfect outfit. Lisa proved to be an invaluable ally,
offering advice and encouragement every step of the way. She even volunteered to help with his makeup on the day of the show. As the big day approached, Camden found himself growing more excited than nervous. He'd chosen a classic power ballad for his performance, one that spoke to his journey from shy wallflower to, well, maybe not quite a social butterfly, but at least a more confident version of himself. The morning of the fundraiser dawned bright and clear. Camden arrived at the office early, his garment bag slung over his shoulder and a makeup case clutched in his sweaty palm. Lisa was waiting for him, grinning from ear to ear. "Ready to become a star?" she asked, ushering him into the conference room they'd converted into a makeshift dressing room. Camden took a deep breath, nodding. "As ready as I'll ever be." For the next 2 hours, Lisa worked her magic, transforming Camden with expert brushstrokes and carefully applied glue. When she finally turned him to face the mirror, Camden gasped. Staring back at him was a stranger, a glamorous, confident-looking woman with smoky eyes, full lips, and cascading blonde curls. The dress they'd chosen hugged curves Camden didn't even know he had, while the heels made his legs look a mile long. "Oh my God," he breathed, hardly recognizing his own voice. Is that really me?" Lisa beamed, giving his shoulder a squeeze.
"That's all you, honey. Just enhanced a little. What do you think? Do you like it?"
Camden studied his reflection, turning this way and that. He expected to feel ridiculous or embarrassed, but instead he felt powerful, beautiful, even. I love it," he admitted softly. As they made their way to the small stage set up in the office's largest conference room, Camden could hear the excited chatter of his coworkers. For a moment, his old insecurities threatened to resurface. What if they laughed at him? What if he made a fool of himself? But then he caught sight of his reflection in a window, saw the confident woman staring back at him, and took a deep breath. He could do this. He was going to do this. The MC, a very enthusiastic guy from accounting, announced his stage name. "Please welcome to the stage, the sensational, the glamorous, Gemma!" As the opening notes of his chosen song filled the room, Gemma, stepped out onto the stage. For a moment, there was stunned silence. Then the room erupted in cheers and whistles. Gemma began to lip-sync, moving with a grace and confidence Camden had never possessed. As she twirled and strutted, hitting every beat of the song, she saw the shocked, delighted faces of her coworkers. Brian's jaw had practically hit the floor, while Lisa was in the front row, cheering louder than anyone. As the song reached its climax, Gemma struck a dramatic pose, one hand reaching for the sky as the final note rang out. The room exploded in applause, people leaping to their feet in a standing ovation. Breathless and exhilarated, Gemma, slowly transforming back into Camden, took a bow, grinning from ear to ear. As he made his way off the stage, he was mobbed by colleagues offering congratulations and compliments. "That was amazing! I had no idea you had it in you. You looked incredible!" Camden basked in the attention, feeling a newfound sense of belonging wash over him. This, he realized, was what it felt like to be seen, to be appreciated, to be part of something. As the excitement of the day began to wind down, Camden found himself in the break room, still in full Gemma regalia, chatting easily with a group of coworkers. The awkwardness that had plagued him for so long seemed to have melted away, replaced by a comfortable confidence. Lisa appeared at his side, grinning broadly. So, how does it feel to be the star of the show? Camden laughed, a sound of pure joy. It feels incredible. I never thought I could do something like this. Thank you, Lisa, for everything.
Thanks for watching, my girlies. Be sure to check out Patreon for more.